Great. Let's go ahead and get started with the breakout session number 4 for data analytics, how to monetize the data you already own. First off, let me start once again by thanking everyone for showing up for the 14th annual Taste of IT. I'll be moderating the session. My name is Don Kennedy with Smart Data Systems, longtime Technology First member and now proud board member. So let's go ahead and get started, but thank you to all the annual sponsors. You'll find those on the main platform that make this event possible. So please stop by and check out their booth if you haven't done so already. But let me go ahead and start with introducing the speaker. Tim Benedict joined Presidio in June 2015 as the data center sales manager responsible for Indiana, Kentucky, and Illinois. After launching the Presidio data center presence in the North Central region, he moved into a strategic CIO consulting role. In his current role as digital business development manager, Tim leads transformation, cloud modernization, and analytics efforts within Presidio's most strategic customers. Tim brings expertise in a number of verticals, including healthcare and education, and leads cross-development collaboration between sales, pre-sales, architectural solutions, and delivery. Tim is responsible for creating and launching a full envisioning strategy consulting process and program within Presidio. He helps customers transition into digitally sustainable infrastructure and application footprint. Tim comes to Presidio from NetApp, where he served as enterprise systems engineer for 3 years. Tim has been in the IT industry since 2001 in various consulting roles, including serving as a CIO of various organizations. Tim currently resides in Indiana with his wife Tara and their 4 children. Please join me in welcoming Tim and Presidio as he discusses how to monetize the data you already own. Tim, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. So for today's topic in the exciting world of how to monetize the data you already own, I wanted to kind of create an approach around some strategies and tactics and really start to bridge how to really understand the value of what you have, understanding that it's more than just an IT conversation, and really present some of the key areas that I see around data management and leading to the valuation of data as an asset. And many of you know, many organizations recognize the data is a vital enterprise asset. We've seen many large companies, especially with customer-focused data initiatives, be able to use and realize data and information. And not only can it give you insight with customers, products, and service, it really aligns to strategic goals. A lot of the things that I interact with on a daily basis from a consultative perspective is really helping organizations align their ability to monetize or democratize their data through hybrid cloud strategies, disparate analytic platforms, and really just helping them understand it's really an organizational effort. But data as a value doesn't just provide key competitive advantages. In some cases, high quality data about your customers' products and services can help you make better design decisions. And what we really see isn't necessarily a lack of intention or ability to want to valuize your data. It's maintaining high quality data and understanding the difference between high quality data that can be actionable and insightful versus unreliable data that may not be a part of your value stream. So in the market, what we're seeing is global data monetization is increasing year over year, and there's lots of forms of that. There's data as a service where you can buy key metrics and run them in different styles and do different things with them. And then of course there are large platform providers and analytic providers that are having turnkey types of solutions, or just even guidance principles on how to get started with even knowing how to manipulate your data. But what we're really seeing year over year is they estimate by year 2025 that the data monetization market alone will be a $7.4 billion industry, mostly due to we're seeing innovations, coming out around especially AI and ML that weren't around 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And so the opportunities and the constant innovation and in the industry is really driving the need for more folks to be able to use what you already have. And I think we're well past the age where saying we're in cloud, saying that we're doing big data analytics is what was the apex of an organizational's ability to provide digital solutions. And there's overwhelming amounts of data that show that data curation, the need for understanding, having or providing data to your entire organization is really where the value behind data across many disparate verticals is happening. So getting really prescriptive and understanding how to start this journey, understanding what data you have is obviously the most pragmatic and basic form of starting this journey. But understanding what digital means and your customers and your competition and the data itself and the innovation cycles that you want to go through in order to create that value is a very important understanding process. And a lot of these topics need to be had at an organizational level where the juxtaposition between IT and the business come together and form a cohesive strategy where the data will be utilized across the different parts of the organization and potentially even customers and partners. And we'll get into kind of what that decision model looks like here in a little bit. But from a customer perspective, how are you broadcasting your value and how are you going to transition that into a two-way dialogue and not just realize that value, but actually turn it into something that would be tangible to a customer or a company. And from a competition perspective, no, not just the folks that you may be going to, competing with on a daily basis, but what are your internal competition? What is being defined by industries? Are there talent gaps where things like data scientists with certain specialties or being able to adapt to an NVIDIA grid and provide that value? There's a lot of challenges that you guys will have inside of your organizations that you need to become fluid across your organization and your industry. And then of course data as a principal understanding is extremely important because without your data being in the form of structured and unstructured data and your ability to access and democratize the ability to use that data oftentimes is a Herculean task for an organization to have to traverse alone. And then, of course, understanding the innovation, what decisions and intuition and are you going to use to turn your data into value? And so understanding what digital means is really an important concept because it gives you an outcome or a vision to drive to. And without that, what we're seeing is as new technology keeps pacing, innovation and disruption and transformation are going from a pace of years into months and weeks. We're seeing quarter over quarter, especially with what's happening in the world today, with COVID really testing everybody's ability for digital cloud, remote workforce, all of these things that are really challenging traditional IT. Is understanding that digital approach across an organization is really the key for innovation and accelerating the cycles of change you're going through. And of course, we all know that transformation is much more than just technology. As I alluded to earlier, just being in a cloud, getting an analytic platform, even building out a data lake, ETL servers, these are all very important technology domains and mandatory building blocks for this data journey. But having actual, tangible, objective metrics to drive to is really what we're focused on. And there really isn't a conversation that we have around digital that doesn't have a financial acumen base to it. Financial acumen being a non-functional requirement, either justifying the cost of said approach or understanding the cost that's going to lead to a value and either getting a tangible business asset, an ROI, a TCO, or some sort of efficiency. The days of just handing over spend outside of a logical life cycle or capex opex depreciation cycle is coming to a much smaller pace. So when you really focus on how we're going to approach monetization of the assets you have, understanding the data, how are you actually going to go through a process to turn that into high quality data? Well, the primary driver for any aspect of the business is a data management strategy. And this is going to let your organization get value from your data assets. It's going to provide effective management, and potentially financial and physical assets will enable you to get value. And so the cost of a solution that would drive the valuation and your ability to monetize that data is a scenario that we hear often. It takes money, or it takes revenue to make revenue. So within the organization, you really need to understand the data management goals and create a diverse group of thought leadership that can help drive the understanding and supporting of the information needs. What are you missing? What are you going to try to drive to? Again, going back to the earlier slide, what does essentially digital mean to you? And what stakeholders, customers, employees, and business partners do you need to be able to drive those outcomes and initiatives? Capturing, storing, and protecting and ensuring the integrity of data assets. We live in a world where cybersecurity and mitigation is intrinsic. If you don't have an understanding of how you're doing data loss prevention, accidental deletions, using demographic data to further distinguish metadata standards within your repositories, these are things that don't fall within IT directly. These are again non-functional elements that are coming and driving these technology decisions. And then, of course, ensuring the quality and data of the information is a constant process. You're not just going to clean your house once and it's going to stay clean all year. You're going to constantly get in there, making sure that you have the correct hygiene, and the data quality that you have is maintained in the standard that you need. And in most cases, as companies or divisions and organizations continue to drive through their different iterations, maybe going from a foundational approach, realizing the value of that stage, and then continuing to go through different iterations, whether it's retiring technical debt or just honing in on even more specific use cases, you're going to probably have different requirements or different uses for that data over time that necessarily wouldn't be as relevant as it would a couple quarters or even a year back. And then I think preventing unauthorized and inappropriate access and manipulation is probably fairly logical. Protecting your intellectual property to your company is something that everybody strives to, but we live in times where ransomware and different auditing standards are becoming mandatory, and release cycles and CISOs are now more responsible than ever than just making sure that audits happen and pen tests. They're creating organizational standards for reference architectures that help make sure that the organization itself is cohesively protecting your data as it becomes more quantifiable. And then, of course, ensuring data can be used effectively to add value to the enterprise. Again, it's just showing value time over time, whether you're aligning to an annual report, if you're initiating board objectives, customers, again, whatever that data source is. So how did we get here? It's not like data is a new concept. I think if you go back to the 2010, 2012 era where Hadoop, Splunk, and some of the big data platforms were really driving data explosion, we've seen a large decline in productivity over time. And when we look back at the early 90s to the mid 2000s, ERP, spreadsheets, these large software systems, Oracle databases, Active Directory, SANS, all these great innovations from the early 2000s really provided a lot of productivity, especially as we started digitizing things. Obviously the internet provided a lot of that connectivity, but now we are on a very significant decline when it comes to technology providing the same work with faster and easier with tech. So the innovation cycles around understanding your data, knowing how to drive those assets and whatnot, we're seeing a little bit of a plateau in that decline, because the overwhelming and disconnected tech with the business, as I alluded to earlier, is driving the need for them to come together again as a common stakeholder group to make sure that productivity is happening at scale. There's a reason why robotic process automation, as an example, is gaining traction. It's no longer on a Gartner hype cycle. It's in the bell curve of adoption. And there's overwhelming evidence that unattended bots and attended bots, as an example, with process mining, can do things quicker and with more efficiency and less are far less prone to error. And these technologies require high governance, human understanding on how to integrate, and is creating just a whole new way that we're approaching business processes, tying API frameworks together, mesh libraries, and all of those things. So within all this, digital itself in this new echelon is really changing how we access data, how we're resourcing data, how we're processing it and protecting it. And our assets aren't changing. We have the same technology issues or challenges that we've always had. And even if we solve them with hybrid cloud strategies and software defined, and we high acumen in orchestration automation or AI ops and full stack visibility, we still have to understand how we're building out each one of these areas from a perspective that allows us to continue to constantly adjust our data management strategy. So on the access side, right, we're focusing from a data perspective on visualizations and displays. From a resourcing, how we store and source things. We're integrating processes on management and how to cleanse and maintain high quality data standards and loss preventions and protection. And that's just on the data side. And that's if you can unlock your data and you put it in a place where you can manipulate and actually do the valuation. But it creates different challenges in the application space. That's where you start aligning DevOps and CI/CD strategies, and with your data standards, and it really matriculates down because no longer are we seeing that app rationalizations themselves are providing high value. They're being driven by the data needs on the top layer, and it's expected that you're going to take an agile strategy and maybe mesh it with a site resiliency engineering strategy to assume that you can maintain paces and sprints. But from a resource perspective, you have to have that rich data from a benchmarking and deployment perspective, right? Processing, you have to develop rapidly and at scale, and then preventing tamper and quality assurance issues when you deploy things is not just up to app dev, it's up to CISOs, it's up to CIOs. These responsibilities are spanning far outside of these traditional siloed practices as it becomes a responsibility of the organization. And then, of course, infrastructure is not going anywhere. If anything, we're seeing the fact that high-end GPUs and the use of true hybrid cloud and the ability to put your data where it needs to be with feature parity across different platforms is the most important. And identity has never been more important from an authorization and a governance perspective. We're getting to the point where if you don't need access to it, then you don't need access to it. And principles like SASE and architecture approaches and red forest designs and microsegmentation are real architectural conversations that are being driven by the need to govern and protect data, let alone from a resourcing perspective, refresh and distribution cycles, lots of outsourcing, and then optimization, automation, and preservation to protect the data in general. So when you really look at your digital strategy, you understand how to map your stakeholder organization approaches, then you really can start to understand the value of data as an asset. So let's talk about how we actually measure data as an asset, because this is not the first time we've seen this in the business world. An asset is really an economic resource, and it can be owned or controlled. It holds and produces value. And we've seen that data is an overwhelming economic element that can easily be converted into a monetization principle, whether it's revenue, money, margin, efficiencies, whatever. It's definitely, data is definitely now recognized as an enterprise asset. And as we said earlier, in the early 1990s, some found it questionable whether the value of goodwill should be given as a monetary value. And it was it was interesting when you would look at a financial statement when a company was being acquired, and they actually were able to put on their financial statement the value of goodwill, whether it was a company's position, it could have been intellectual property, their people, their process, their ability to execute against that process. We're seeing the same thing with data from a standard or from a precedence and contextual perspective. I mean, it's this process and this concept. There's no universal framework. There's no one way to approach it. It's very subjective. So, if you identify yourself as a data-driven organization, everybody's doing that at this point. It's proven that if you're not a data-driven organization, you're losing out on insights that would otherwise be given to your competition, or even worse, somebody who would potentially take out your vertical through innovation and efficiencies altogether. So understanding that data is an asset, and just like the valuation on a P&L, where you would look at a company's something that's intangible but has a lot of value, we really need to start looking at strong data management principles. And this really starts honing in on the whole concept of how do you monetize your data or how do you monetize what you already own? And you really start looking at shared characteristics with other forms of asset management, right? You have to know what data as an organization and what might be accomplished with it, and then determine how to best use the data assets to reach your organizational goals. If your data sits in a cloud, if it sits on a high performance compute cluster, if it sits on a GPU cluster, no one really cares. That's just an infrastructure component that is being driven by requirements. But if you actually have organizationally wide data management principles, then these are the starting point for you to be able to create high quality data. So you have to understand that as an asset, data has unique properties. The value of data should be expressed in economic terms. In other words, if you're trying to create a data warehouse in Amazon, why or what are the economic value of that structure, right? And really, again, this goes well outside of IT, and understanding again that thought diverse the stakeholder group that owns the responsibility of defining the economic value. And oftentimes they don't even know what they don't know, because again, going back to data management itself, they have to have the ability to have access to that and look at it from those disparate viewpoints well beyond what IT provides. The other element that I find very, very critical is it takes metadata to manage data. You have to be able to provide data on your data so you can do different things with it, and it doesn't just sit in a single repository and you're running standard algorithms, or you're pulling reports, or you're doing crunches, or you're doing cube builds, whatever the methodology is. Metadata is extremely important. Annotating and putting additional value around data assets is the key to understanding how to get high quality data. And then data management is cross-functional. It requires a range of skills and expertise. It takes more than a DBA, a data scientist, a cloud expert, an enterprise architect. It requires, a financial expert, a marketing expert, a cybersecurity expert, so on and so forth. And we'll touch on that here in a moment. But there's the different types of data have different life cycle characteristics as well. If you are in retail, you care a lot about your peak periods and your freeze periods. If you're in higher ed, you care about admissions in summer and reaching your students to attract new talent. Again, there's the going back to the metadata principle, understanding peak periods, when to crunch different elements, and having all of that readily available is part of a data management principle. You're not going to put all of your cash, cash is king, right? You're not going to put it into these long-term investment principles. You're going to keep your assets and your money where you need to be able to spend that. And that's what really data is coming to, is being able to use it as cash when needed, when to invest it, and when to put long-term holds, buy futures, sell, so on and so forth. And then data management requirements must drive information technology decisions. So this is going to come back to enterprise architecture. And I'm not talking about the age of TOGAF, where enterprise architects sat on their ivory towers and let us kiss their rings and were beholden to their standards and a ridiculous amount of paperwork. You should, as IT leaders, be able to understand the data is an asset with unique properties, and take those requirements, those non-functional business requirements, and you should be able to show how you are going to align those non-functional requirements to the business decisions all the way through cyber and up through resiliency and even the economic value. And that is really another thing that we're really seeing is center of excellence is coming back. Enterprise architecture is coming back. And these needs are really driving some of the evaluation principles. So after you understand your data management and you're speaking about your data and economic principles, then we really start to define data valuation, right? And monetization is great, but understanding the value is more important, because the value is the difference between the cost of a thing and the benefit derived from that thing. And now it's kind of a sentence where you need to really dive into what that means. So in some assets, it might be a stock. Calculating the value is easy. So maybe there's low-hanging fruit or a very objective value that you would get out of certain data. Let's go to the manufacturing principle. Understanding predictive analytics to improve quality of your product is a very easy value. But taking predictive analytics and understanding if you can correlate just-in-time analytics across different regions of the world is a bit different. It's going to take a lot more intangible subjective data to be able to show that in economic terms. But for data, these calculations, as I said, are a lot more complicated, because sometimes a cost can't be necessarily associated to the benefits. So you really need to understand how to create some sample categories right here, right? From an applied consistency all across your organization. So what is the cost of obtaining and storing the data? Do you need a large repository all year, or is this something that again you can use as a service? What is the revenue impact if the data is lost? What is that revenue loss worth the mitigation strategies from a cyber acumen perspective? If the data is missing, then what happens? Traditionally, I think we've all seen that these questions were usually based on disaster recovery for entire environments. Well, we're not really applying those per se to data centers anymore. It's really around data itself and the ability to use that. It's where things like tertiary copies or immutable backups or just having multiple replicas across different regions and zones are really becoming more attractive strategies for data loss prevention and risk mitigation than just focusing on the infrastructure itself. So the other big element is, what is the cost of improving your data? What if you are at a foundational stage and you need to do more with less, or you need to figure out different variants? That's really a cross analysis of the cost of improving data with the benefits of higher quality data. And then, of course, the more common question would be, what is the expected revenue from all of those things above, and how are you going to create that across your organization? So all the business elements and aspects of data across the organization will still come back to IT. And this is where an interlock happens. And again, the businesses are starting to see more value. I think this was about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, Deloitte released a study. Several CEOs, 40% of them said that they trust their IT leaders through COVID more than they trust their CFO and CMO and COO combined. And it's mostly due to the fact that data, digital, cloud, all of these things have never been more important in order for companies to not just stay afloat, but in some cases, there are verticals, as you all know, that are very they're very strained right now. And so having these insights and creating revenue streams, staying relevant, have never been more important. And this really comes back down to the business and digital objectives coming into enterprise architecture. So you have business architects, application architects, data architects, technical architects, and security architects, defining and standardizing your assets and having cross-domain collaborative architecture conversations and ensuring that the data asset itself is being taken care of. Again, data as an asset with high value is as highly regarded as cash is, because it's a monetization of something that will help you, drive elements that you would never do otherwise. And so we're seeing a new type of enterprise architecture. A Vanguard, our enterprise architect, is really somebody who sits alongside a foundational architect, and it's a very unique discipline for holistically leading responses to disruptive forces. So what we're seeing is there's almost new positions in architecture that are being developed because of the desire to monetize data. And some of these cases, you would think, well, we've seen business analysts for a while. Well, this goes far beyond even traditional enterprise architecture or business analysts, because the scope of the enterprise architecture includes people, process, information, and technology. So the foundational EA and the Vanguard EA are very important because it's one discipline and two priorities. So let's get into how you would map a decision model. Well, at the center of your decision model are going to be your algorithms and AI engines, and then you'll have your partners, customers, employees, again your different stakeholders and groups, and it's up to the source data as well for you to pull in those pieces of telemetry and be able to capitalize on that data. Your sources are just as important as your repositories. So we'll kind of touch on data quality and start really wrapping this up, but data quality itself refers to the characteristics in high quality data. And again, this is a continual process, right? Measuring and improving the quality of data usages is very high. It's very important to meeting the expectations and the need of your data consumers. Your data consumers are going to continually want this to be presented with the data that's actionable. And so just understand that you probably have a lot of data, but not all of it is of equal importance. And one principle of data quality management is to continually focus on the improvement of efforts on the data. And it's really the most important aspect to its customers. And there's a lot that leads up to data quality, of course. But when you really start your journey around data monetization, and as you talk to your peers across the different aspects of your organization, data quality is one aspect of data management, but it is really the piece that I find that really drives the ability to get to those business principles, understanding how to get folks outside of IT to understand how data is an asset, and really getting to that valuation when you need to. And of course, there's lots of common data quality issues. I mean, it's not, there's no framework that's perfect. It's like I said, it's your ability to execute against it is what's important. So, as you really focus on data quality and your data stakeholders are constantly consuming that, just, a lack, I would say common barriers would be a lack of awareness on the part of leadership and staff. We've already got a data lake, we're already doing this. We've got 2 data lakes, we're siloing data, whatever. A lack of business governance, not technology governance, business governance, no different than how they would treat their cash flow or their assets or their investments. And then a lack of leadership and just management, right? Again, this can't be just a IT problem or IT challenge. The business has to stay invested and understand that monetizing data is a very long process, continual improvement, no different than any other asset. And then, the investment of just continually effective instruments to measure the value, especially as you continue to transform, requirements will change, usage will change, data will change. So just be mindful that it's a continual process. There's no perfect way to approach it. Your data is an asset to your organization, and it's up to you and the organization to continually work to improve and ensure that the valuation of your assets stays relevant. Summary and recommendations. I think we need a little bit of time for some Q&A here. So here's my summary and recommendations. Take time to research your market, your competitions, and your solutions. Ask what your digital plan is. Like, do you have a digital desire? Definitely have a healthy paranoia. A lot of folks say they can do this. There's a lot of good platforms out there. That doesn't necessarily mean it's relevant to you. Expand practices to make sure you stay agile as a company, not just in IT. Make sure that things like change control, governance, cyber, whatever might be a barrier, are at least open to the innovation cycles for your approach. And then, build your trusted partner network. Find out who's done this. Go to go to events like this and meet good people. And a lot of folks have done a lot of this already, or are doing it in a way that might be valuable to you. And really just take the leap. Start having the conversations and see what's out there and what you could possibly create for your organization. So with that, I guess we can open it up for some Q&A.
Yeah, at this time, we do not have any questions. If I can stay off mute. I did have a quick question around the Agile approach. Any stories there where you're seeing people do things well, or in the reverse case, not so well, that you could share with this group?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that the not so well approach would be assuming that you have to do it all at once and boil the ocean. I would say where most folks start this journey well is kind of a coexistence strategy where you put your digital aspect next to your operations, because you don't want to disrupt operations to do something innovative. There's a balance there. So just making sure that you have the ability to measure and value something that pick something that it will be a win, right? Start with it doesn't necessarily have to be straight to data monetization, but maybe get the organization open to something like RPA or an efficiency, or most young technologies start out proving their value in the efficiency range. I've never seen a company or an organization fail when they kind of think big, move fast, and start small. The benefits will speak for themselves, and the results will speak for themselves.
Great. We do still have a couple minutes if you had any other thoughts, and if anyone's got any questions, please drop those into the Q&A. But at this time, there are no other questions. Do you have anything else you want to cover, Tim?
No, I'm good. I appreciate you all having me. It was
Yep, absolutely. That was great content, and thank you very much for your time. Also want to give a special thanks to CareSource, our featured sponsor for this session. If you would, remember to complete your survey for each session by finding the link for feedback survey at the very bottom of this session on the Tech First platform. By participating in this survey, you make your voice heard and are helping shape the future of technology first events. Thank you for taking the time in advance for filling out that survey. And we do have a 15-minute break before our next session, so grab some caffeine, visit some exhibitors, and explore the event platform. There are game codes as you're exploring that app, so go to the event game tab to learn more. The game code for attending this session is DATA. And again, Tim, thank you for your time and have a great day.
Thank you.